Hello, everyone, and welcome to the York Observatory's weekly Teletube broadcast, the online astronomy and astrophysics program written and presented by the students, faculty, and alumni and friends of York University. We are broadcasting live from the Alumni Carswell Observatory located at York University in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. York YouTube broadcasts every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. local Toronto time. For any questions or comments you have of our past shows, or if you have suggestions for future topics, please send us an email at observe@yorku.ca. You can always connect with us on Twitter with the handle @York Observatory and Facebook at Alumni Carswell Ops. Welcome again. I'm Maheen and I'll be one of your hosts this evening along with Dorsa, Dhyan, and Arfa. Tonight we've got a presentation about the constellation Perseus and its relationship with the Perseids meteor shower. But before we get started, I'd like to say that the observatory at York campus is in Toronto, and we would like to welcome you all to our show and to acknowledge the traditional land that our telescope is on. The observatory acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many indigenous nations. The area known as Toronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and the Métis. It is now home to many indigenous peoples. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Our stargazing and astronomical efforts join the long history and current practices of astronomy for this land. The observatory looks forward to continuing to learn and revitalizing our knowledge in this area. Welcome again. But before we get started with our main show, we want to give you a little update on what you can see this coming week. Some stars visible tonight include Arcturus, Vega, and Antares. Arcturus is the brightest star in the northern constellation of Boötes, the fourth brightest star in the night sky and the brightest star in the northern celestial hemisphere. Vega is the brightest star in the northern constellation of Lyra and a part of the summer triangle, which is easy to spot and consists of Vega, Arcturus, and Deneb. Antares is the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpius. These stars have a good enough magnitude to be easily spotted with the naked eye or binoculars. Perseus, which is a constellation, and our topic for today will luckily be up tonight for anyone interested in having a look. Merfak is the brightest star in the constellation of Perseus, which will be further discussed in detail to Teletube. There will also be a discussion on an easy way to spot Perseus in the night sky. Talking about Perseus, Perseids meteor shower this year started on 17th July and will be visible until 24th August. It peaks on 13th August. They will start to wane around 21st to 22nd August. The best time to view Perseids is between midnight and dawn. Even though the peak time has passed, it's still not too late. Stay tuned for tips to observe the meteor shower. Moon is currently in a waning gibbous phase and has an illumination of 63%. Moon and its craters are always a treat to look at. Planets visible tonight include Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn is the sixth planet from the Sun and the second largest in the solar system after Jupiter. Even though some other planets also have rings, Saturn has the most complicated rings of all. Even though Saturn can be spotted with the naked eye and will appear pale yellow in color, its rings cannot be seen without a telescope. Jupiter will be up a little bit later than Saturn at around 6:54 p.m. local Toronto time, which means that it is already up. Both Saturn and Jupiter will be rising or have risen on the southeastern horizon. Now, without any further delay, Dorsa will start us off. Take it away, Dorsa.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dorsa, and I'm here with you to talk a bit about the history of Perseus, a constellation that is 240 light years away from Earth. This constellation, or in simpler words, a large group of stars, is the 24th largest constellation in the sky and is located in the northern hemisphere. The latitudes for its seeing is between 90 degrees and negative 35 degrees, depending on the time of the year and the weather conditions. However, the best viewing would be in late summer and beginning of autumn, which is exactly now. On the 13th of this month, we had a meteor shower called the Perseids, which appeared to come from the constellation of Perseus. Let's talk a bit about Perseus himself, actually. In Greek mythology, Perseus, or son of Zeus, the god of sky and thunder, was a hero who slew Medusa and rescued Princess Andromeda, daughter of King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia. Since ancient times, astronomers like Ptolemy named Perseus as one of the main constellations that is still an important one among the 88 modern constellations, according to the IAU, or the International Astronomical Union. A little fun fact about this constellation is that in ancient times, constellations like Perseus were made use of to create and track the calendar so they knew when to plant crops and harvest them, or simply for going by their days and make different arrangements with respect to the seasons. Next slide, please. Perseus's most famous star is known to be Algol, or the demon star, because of how it represents the head of Medusa. Algol is an eclipsing binary star of an apparent magnitude of 2.05 and an absolute magnitude of negative 0.15. The absolute magnitude basically is the actual brightness of the star, whereas apparent magnitude is the brightness appears to us observers from Earth's perspective. So folks, make sure to go outside under the night sky and try to find Perseus by letting your eyes adjust the darkness or bringing a pair of binoculars for a better view. Remember that if you are residing in the northern hemisphere of Earth, there is a higher chance for you to see this constellation. It is prominent from dark sides, but stars like Algol and Mirfak could probably help you in finding the whole constellation when you're observing. Algol and Almach can be used in finding some bright deep sky objects like the open cluster Messier 34, the Umbert spiral galaxy, NGC 891, or Silver galaxy, and the spiral galaxy of NGC 1003. Let's talk a bit about Mirfak, or Alpha Persei, which is a yellow supergiant star in the constellation of Perseus. It has an apparent magnitude of 1.8, and unlike Algol, it is the brightest star in this constellation. Mirfak is the 33rd brightest star in the night sky. Also, the absolute magnitude is negative 5.1, clearly having a brighter view than Algol, which was negative 0.15. So the lower or more negative the magnitude of the star, the absolute magnitude of the star, the brighter the star actually is. Mirfak is 510 light years away from Earth, and yet it can easily be seen with binoculars. This star has a mass that is about 8.5 times of the mass of our sun. And another fun fact about the star is that it is actually one of the 58 stars that holds a vital role in the field of celestial navigation, so that in the constellation of Perseus, it becomes the only navigational star and not Algol, as previously thought. The name Mirfak comes from the Arabic word elbow, referring to the elbow of Pleiades, which is a group of more than 800 stars located 410 light years away from Earth. This star has been known by so many different cultures, from Arabs to Chinese and to Greeks, and to so many other more cultures. It is relatively easy to locate it in the night sky, and especially if you want to find Perseus, since it is near a couple of familiar stars that we already know of. Mirfak lies under Cassiopeia, which is recognized for its W asterism, and it is right above the line connecting the bright Capella and Almach in the constellation of Andromeda. There are so many interesting deep sky objects like clusters and galaxies in the vicinity of Mirfak. And for example, we have the open cluster of NGC 1528. And another last fact that I would like to talk about this star is that it is circumpolar, meaning that it never sets below the horizon, so you would actually be able to see it in the night sky any day. So in my last slide, I would like to mention the list of the main stars that we have in the constellation of Perseus. Other than Algol and Mirfak, there is Eta Persei, Rho Persei, Alpha Persei, Gamma Persei, Omicron, and Kappa Persei, and so much more. And as you can see, the naming is completely related to the Greek alphabets, and this way it is easier for us to distinguish when it comes to this to distinguish each star by its name when it comes to this constellation. There are 19 main stars in Perseus, and some of them are variable stars of either eclipsing or pulsating type. A lot of open clusters, galaxies, and planetary nebula like Messier 76, or the Little Dumble Nebula, with a magnitude of 10.1, are present in this constellation, making Perseus a very interesting research target and just a beautiful sight to see in the night sky. That's all for my part today, folks. Dhyan will now talk about more astronomical objects within this constellation. Take it away, Dhyan.
Thanks, Dorsa. So there are several very popular astronomical objects within Perseus, and Dorsa already mentioned one of them. Let's get started with that one. So Algol is a triple star system, and it's also commonly known as the demon star, as Dorsa mentioned. And this is because it represents the head of Medusa in the sky. Algol is one of the best known variable stars, a star whose brightness fluctuates from Earth. And this star lies at a relatively close distance of 90 light years and is the second brightest star in the constellation, with an apparent magnitude of 2.12. This triple star system contains a hot blue-white main sequence star, a cooler orange subgiant star, and a white star. And the reason this star system's brightness often fluctuates is because the blue-white and the white stars regularly eclipse each other during their orbit, causing their brightness as viewed from Earth to drop. So most of the time, the star system has a magnitude of 2.12, but when the orange subgiant passes in front of its brighter counterparts, the magnitude drops to 3.4 approximately every 3 days. The brightest star in the system, Beta Persei 881, has a mass that is about 3.2 times that of the sun, and a radius that's about 2.7 times that of the sun. And the white star, Beta Persei 882, is less massive than our own sun at about 0.7 times the mass, but it has grown to 3.5 times the radius of the sun. And these two stars are only separated by a distance of 0.062 astronomical units. That's extremely close. And that's why these stars orbit each other so frequently, causing frequent eclipses. And there is a lot more we could cover about the star system, but now let's move on to an interesting star cluster, M34. So Messier 34, or M34, is a massive and bright open cluster in the northern constellation Perseus. The cluster is approximately 1,500 light years away from Earth and has an apparent magnitude of 5.5. M34 is best viewed using a low magnification telescope. Small telescopes can disclose up to 20 stars, whereas bigger amateur telescopes can expose up to 80 stars, and many of which are aligned in pairs. The best months to watch the cluster from northern latitudes are October, November, and December. M34 is unique in that it is one of the closest Messier objects to Earth, which is 6 other Messier objects being closer. It has approximately 100 stars, but may include up to 400. And lastly, M34 is a young star cluster estimated to be between 200 and 250 million years old. And just for reference, our Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Now moving on to another star cluster, the double cluster. The double cluster, often known as Caldwell 14, is given the name to 2 open clusters in the Perseus constellation, NGC 869 and NGC 884. The clusters are also known as H Persei and Chi Persei. And both of them are around 7,600 light years from Earth and are approximately 12.8 million years old. The double cluster with an apparent magnitude of 3.7 to 3.8 is visible even without binoculars in good conditions, but is best spotted with binoculars or small telescopes. The clusters have an individual mass of 3,700 solar masses belonging to NGC 869 and 2,800 belonging to NGC 884. But because each cluster is surrounded by an extended halo of stars, the overall mass of the double cluster is at least 20,000 solar masses. The two clusters are only hundreds of light years apart. In mythology, the double cluster represents the jeweled handle of Perseus' sword, given to the hero by the gods, along with a shield and a helmet to help him in his challenges. And now that we've discussed a couple stars and star clusters in the Perseus constellation, let's talk about a couple nebulas, starting with the California Nebula. The California Nebula is a huge emission nebula in Perseus that spans over 2.5 degrees in the night sky. It's approximately 1,000 light years away and has an apparent magnitude of 6.0. The California Nebula was called that from the layout of the United States state of California on a map. This nebula is approximately 100 light years across, and despite its size and visual magnitude of 6.0, the nebula is difficult to detect visually due to its low surface brightness. The nebula necessitates extraordinarily clear dark skies free of light pollution, as well as the use of a rich field telescope equipped with H alpha or H beta filter. A narrow band filter that allows H alpha spectral lines of emission nebulae to pass while blocking practically all other wavelengths is known as an H alpha filter. It is required for studying difficult visual targets that generate hydrogen alpha lines. And now, last but not least, let's talk about the Little Dumbbell Nebula. So Messier 76 or M76, or the Little Dumbbell Nebula, is a planetary nebula in Perseus. And it's also known, the nebula is approximately 2,500 light years away from Earth and has an apparent magnitude of 10.1. It carries the new general catalog names of NGC 650 and NGC 651 because it was formerly thought to be two independent emission nebulae. The Little Dumbbell Nebula is also known as the Cork Nebula or the Barbell Nebula. Because it has a spatial diameter of barely 1.23 light years, the nebula is one of the most challenging Messier objects to detect. The best time of year to observe the Little Dumbbell Nebula is during the months of October, November, and December. It is a challenging object for southern observers because it never climbs high above the northern horizon when seen from locations south of the equator. And the Little Dumbbell Nebula was named after the much bigger Dumbbell Nebula. The cork, or the main body, resembles a donut-shaped ring. The gas along the ring's axis expands at a faster rate, generating the nebula's wings, which are fainter than the main body. The cork and the wings are encircled by an even fainter halo made up of debris ejected by the core star while it was still in its red giant phase. When a sun-like star ran out of fuel late in its life, it evacuated its outer layers, resulting in the formation of the nebula. This material was subsequently heated by the star remnant radiation, resulting in the luminous clouds we observe as the nebula. And that's all the time we have to explore the amazing astronomical objects that make up this, the Perseids constellation. I'll now give it off to Arfa to talk about the Perseids meteor shower.
Thank you, Dhyan. Now, the Perseids. The Perseids are one of the brighter meteor showers of the year and are quite capable of being seen with the naked eye. Additionally, Perseid meteors are nice and plentiful, with around 50 to 100 meteors falling per hour near the peak of the season. This means that it doesn't require an unreasonable amount of luck to observe them. If you're able to get a clear view of the sky without too much light pollution, and you watch for a few hours, you're likely to see a good number of meteors. That said, you're going to need to wait for a clear night, though. Meteor trails are caused by the rocks burning up in the upper atmosphere far above the cloud level. So if it is an overcast night where you are unfortunately unlikely to see anything. If you're planning a trip to watch the meteors, make sure to check the weather. Now, where do these occur? Where can you watch the meteor shower? Well, the Perseids, as the name applies, appears to come from the direction of the constellation of Perseus. Perseus, as mentioned by Dhyan, is a northern hemisphere constellation. So the meteors are much easier to see if you live in the northern hemisphere. If you do live in the southern hemisphere, you may still be able to see a few meteors if you live less than around 30 degrees south of the equator, as Perseus is still visible at those latitudes. However, the further south you are, the fewer meteors you will see, unfortunately. Best time to view them. The Perseids occur yearly between July 17th and August 24th, typically reaching their peak between August 9 and August 13. There are three phases of twilight. The first, civil twilight, occurs immediately after the sun sets and right before it rises. During this period of time, the sun is below the horizon by less than 6 degrees, so the world is typically still bright enough for people to see clearly and go about their business as normal, even without artificial lightning. The second phase of twilight is called the nautical twilight, in which the sun is between 6 and 12 degrees below the horizon. Under clear conditions, the horizon and many of the brightest stars can be seen during this phase, meaning that it is possible to navigate at sea using the position of the stars in relation to the horizon. This is where the name nautical twilight comes from. Astronomical twilight, the third and the final phase of twilight, can be hard to differentiate from nighttime with the naked eye. During this period of the time, sun is between 12 and 18 degrees below the horizon. Most astronomical objects can be seen more easily with the naked eye, and are visible by this point, but astronomers those looking more closely for fainter objects may still have difficulties seeing targets until this period ends. Now, let's say you have picked out a nice open place to watch the meteor shower. First of all, make sure that you're allowed to sky watch in the place you have picked out. You don't want to be trespassing on someone else's property. Once you've verified that you're allowed to watch the sky from the place you've selected, check the weather, that it will be clear, and you're far away from the bright lights to get a nice view of the sky. What's the best way to view the meteors? Well, make sure to dress for the weather. Bring a sweater and some blankets because it can get cold at night and you're going to want to stay a while in order to maximize your chances of seeing some meteors. If you live anywhere near Toronto, the bugs can also be a problem outside the city in the evening. So it may be a good idea to bring bug spray as well. The best position for meteor watching is lying down on your back. This gives you a wide view of the sky without having to strain your neck to pull your head back. We recommend laying a big blanket on the ground and laying down on top, but do whatever works best to make yourself comfortable. While you're looking at the sky, turn off any devices that produce light. You're going to want the darkest possible surroundings so that your eyes can adjust to the dark. This will make it easier for you to make out the trails of the meteors in the sky high above you. Next, it does not hurt to know about the constellation that Dhyan mentioned to you about. The Perseids will appear to be moving away from the constellation of Perseus. Although they can appear anywhere in the sky, to find Perseus, it's easiest to begin by looking north and locating Cassiopeia, which looks like a bright W or an M in the stars in the northern sky. Whether Cassiopeia appears as a W or an M depends on the time of the night. If it looks like a W, Perseus is below the left part of the zigzag. If it looks like an M, it's to the right of the zigzag. So usually at the nighttime in Toronto, at a latitude of around 40 degrees north, Perseus will appear right near the northern horizon when the sun sets around 8:30ish. At sunrise, which is usually in Toronto around 7 a.m., Perseus will be more or less directly overhead. All the meteors should look like they're traveling away from Perseus. Of course, there's no real connection between the meteor shower radiant and the constellation Perseus. The stars in Perseus are many light years distant, while these meteors burn up about 100 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Now over to Dorsa.
Well, everyone, you have been listening to the Illinois Cosmos Observatory's weekly Teletube broadcast, the Astronomy and Astrophysics program written and presented by the students, faculty, alumni, and friends of York University. The hosts this evening have been Arfa, Maheen, Dhyan, and myself, Dorsa. Make sure to leave any comments or questions in the comment section of the video and talk to us in the chat right now. We will be around for the next 20 minutes to answer your questions. All of our programs are free, but if you would like to make a donation, see our website at observatory.info.yorku.ca. You can always connect with us on Twitter with the handle @YorkObservatory and check out our website for show notes, content, updates, and contact info at observatory.info.yorku.ca. Thank you so much for tuning in. Clear skies and have a good night.